So many moms feel stuck and isolated, like they've got to keep it all together and can't say how hard it really is. On Let's Get Real, we talk about the real stuff, motherhood, mental health, and everything in between, so you don't feel like you have to carry it alone anymore. Because in order to heal, we have to get real. If you're feeling overwhelmed, grab the Overwhelmed Mom's Guide. It's totally free and made to help you feel like yourself again. The link is in the show notes. Let's jump in. Most of us are taught to push down uncomfortable emotions and just keep going. But the truth is, those unprocessed feelings don't disappear. They often show up later in our bodies as stress, pain, or even illness. My guest today knows this firsthand. Amy Vincze has spent the past 16 years helping people use EFT tapping to break free from the cycles of stored pain and discover what real healing looks like. Amy has worked in the health and wellness field for over 20 years and is a certified tapping coach. After using EFT tapping to heal from her own chronic health struggles, she founded the Soar with Tapping app to help people everywhere access this life-changing tool. Her mission is to show how tapping can uncover hidden emotional blocks, release long-held pain, and create space for lasting freedom. Amy, thank you so much for being here today. I am really looking forward to having this conversation around this topic of emotions and tapping and diving into really your expertise on this topic. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's my favorite thing to talk about.
I'm so glad it is because I know you are going to share so much insight on this and how it's just such a practical tool that we can apply, and even just showing us how this is applicable in so many areas and situations in our life. So I cannot wait to dive in. To start us out, I know that from what I've read about you and learned about you, that you've really lived both sides of this, finding tapping in the middle of your own struggles, and then now you're able to use it helping so many others. Can you just start by sharing a little bit about your journey and how you discovered tapping in the first place?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think it's important to note that I've always been a bit of a seeker. I've always been really curious about my own behavior and other people's behavior and kind of what makes people tick. And I've always just kind of known that things that happen in my life are really only my responsibility. I've never felt like a victim in anything. It's always had that understanding that everything happens for a reason, and it's usually the things that I think and believe that have led me to this place. And actions, of course, but mostly it's the underlying emotions around it. I think kind of emotions are king around things.
Right.
So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 31.
Oh my gosh, that is shockingly young.
It was, and because there was no history of breast cancer in my family, it was extra shocking. I just couldn't, for the longest time, I couldn't even really accept that it was true. It just felt so weird.
Yeah.
And of course, after all the treatments and surgeries and stuff like that, I got curious again. And I wasn't looking at it like, why did this happen to me? Shaking my fist at God sort of thing. It was really like, no, really. Why me? What is it about my thoughts, my fears, my way of being in the world that kind of led me to this place? Because in my mind, positives release positive hormones in our body, negative thoughts release stress hormones in our body. And so there is always a physical reaction to an emotion or a feeling around things. And because I had been in a place of a lot of depression and anxiety, I knew kind of intuitively that played a part in me developing cancer. And so it was shortly thereafter that I really kind of started diving in and trying to find the answers to these questions. And I met somebody that introduced me to tapping, and I immediately knew that this was a really powerful tool. And I immediately kind of at some level understood that this was the thing that was going to help me heal from cancer, and not just, and just making sure that it didn't happen again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And it's crazy to think like you could see this connection. There was something, because I don't think that a lot of people would even consider the connection with their thoughts and their feelings. If anything, we tend to go just medical and purely physical. And so I'm interested on what you've learned with that connection and how our emotions are connected to our physical bodies and how that suppressing them, pushing them down can actually manifest in these physical ailments. So if you could expand a little bit more on that, I would love to learn more.
I'd love to. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me because it really is just one body that everything that we put in, including the food that we eat and the beverages that we drink and the thoughts that we think and our environmental stuff, that it all has an impact on us, on our physical body. Even though it isn't, some things aren't technically physical, there is always an emotional element to it. Okay. And studies have shown, and even doctors agree, that 95% of inflammation in the body is due to stress.
Wow.
So the fact that we only go to the Western medical approach with things, because that's what we're taught to do, especially in America, that's what you do when you get sick. But it made sense to me that all of these things contributed to it. And so it makes sense to address any kind of physical issue in a really comprehensive way, meaning look at nutrition and look at your physical activity, but also definitely look at the emotional element, because there is always an aspect to that in your physical health. Even if it is pain that resulted from an injury, from a car accident or something like that. Our bodies are made to heal. And if they are not healing, there is an emotional element to it that we are not letting go of.
Yes, that's so good. And so good. It's making me think, like, why do you think it is so difficult for us in our culture to even address and deal with our emotions? Why it makes it so challenging? I feel like that's such a roadblock and an obstacle, where the quote unquote easier path is like, let's deal with something more tangible, less scary, like, you know what I mean? Like just physical. So what do you think contributes to making it so hard to face and deal with our feelings?
Well, culturally, we have never been encouraged to do that. Over the years, if women were emotional, they were considered hysterical and even committed. And men, if they experience any other emotion rather than anger, they are considered weak. And so there has never been a place or a way that we have encouraged each other to move through uncomfortable emotions. And that's where it all stems from, is our inability to process and move through uncomfortable emotions. So instead of somebody gets really hurt or feels incredibly sad, we try to slap on happy, shiny emotions on top of that and just say, look at the bright side sort of thing. We don't actually encourage people to turn into the sadness and turn into the hurt and really feel it. And so ignoring it is the biggest problem that we've got right now. The fact that we push it away, we deny it, we cover it up with other things, we make ourselves busy, is the thing that encourages us to continue to suffer. And over time, it just builds up and it will cause physical problems at some point. It just will.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, because we've never been encouraged. We've never been taught how to do it. It feels really scary because of all the judgment and criticism that could be associated with, having an emotional outburst of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so true. I love that you've painted this picture, because it is helpful to understand. And what's standing out to me from what you said is how ignoring it, pretending, denying it never actually works. It doesn't work. That's literally lying to ourselves.
Yes.
That is just fueling that denial piece, and which is a coping mechanism. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism that doesn't actually work or get us out. And even just thinking, because for myself, this has been very, very difficult to navigate, because That's what I've learned, is just to repress. And then I have had some significant health issues. So I've been trying to find resources. It's been hard to find helpful resources to learn, like, how do I open myself up to feeling these? Because they did feel terrifying at first.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do I do with all of this? So like, how do I name what I'm feeling? First of all, how do I then deal with and move through it where I'm not getting stuck constantly, and even just stuck in the sadness and the grief because of not knowing how to really grieve and not knowing how to invite people in.
Yeah.
So it's been very challenging. But then as I've been practicing this, it's been literally every day of just like, I need to name what I feel, just name it and then deal with it, and then share it with someone. It has been so tremendously helpful because it's super messy, but then I'm like, I'm not having to do it alone.
Yes. Yes.
So I think about for like moms, a lot of them, you start out the gate in motherhood in survival mode, but what often happens is you get stuck in it. Yeah. It's so easy for that to become a way of life. So for a lot of these moms who are stuck in survival mode, how does carrying the weight of unprocessed stress or pain affect the way that they show up for themselves and their families?
Just tremendously. The sense of overwhelm and anxiety especially for young moms who have unprocessed trauma is really huge. And one of the main reasons is because we are overwhelmed and we are stressed, we have no ability to really stay in the present moment and stay present in our bodies, because all of our energy goes up into our head, and it's like swirling energy, trying to solve problems constantly, trying to make it so that the past doesn't happen again where painful stuff is, and the future is going to be safe. So we try to control everything up in that upper energy. And it's really when our energy is down in our body and in a place of feeling that we are our most effective and most efficient versions of ourselves, and most real versions of ourselves. So we have to stop that spinning thinking and really get grounded and in the present moment. It's really difficult to do that when you've got stuff from the past that's unprocessed, and you're worried about the future for your kids constantly, and about checking all the boxes for all of the unrealistic expectations that we have for our moms today. And so it's a really horrible place to be. And you're spread so thin that it's really difficult to accomplish anything. And it's because we are not grounded in our bodies. I mean, I think that's a huge portion of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
But getting grounded in our bodies requires feeling the things that we have unprocessed. So that's why most people avoid it. The body is the place that we hold all that unprocessed trauma, all the things from our childhood that didn't feel great, but we didn't know how to deal with it at the time. We weren't taught how to deal with it at the time. So it can be really uncomfortable to be in our bodies. So that's why it requires kind of turning into all of that really scary stuff and facing it.
Yes. As you're talking, I so relate with that and what my own journey has been like in motherhood. My oldest is 5, but early on when he was a baby, I remember getting so easily overwhelmed and very tricky, because I hadn't at that point really dove in to address so much of the previous trauma. But in motherhood, it was like everything got unearthed and came up, and I was shocked because of previously my coping mechanism of being like pretending, nope, I'm not bothered by that, I'm okay, I'm good. And then it's like, no, I literally couldn't deny it anymore. I was like, whoa, I can trial with all my might, but all of this stuff is coming up, and it's so much. So I really love what you're sharing, because there's also so much hope in what we can do with it. And that's part of why I want to dive into asking if you could explain what EFT tapping is, and then how this can be used as a tool to help, particularly like in this situation with moms with young kids who may feel overwhelmed in that setting.
Yes, definitely. Tapping is a really great and powerful combination of 3 different modalities, which I think is the thing that makes it so powerful. The first is energy therapy, because it is literally the same thing as acupuncture, but instead of using the needles on your acupressure points, you are using the percussion of tapping on your acupressure points. In acupuncture, the idea is that we have these 14 energy meridians in our body, and when we are in a state of health, energy is constantly flowing. And when we have a fear or a pain or a limiting belief, there is a blockage in that energy system and energy is not flowing. So we use the percussion of tapping on the energy blockages to break it up and help it to flow again.
Wow.
And then the second is that there is to this a cognitive therapy aspect, because we are talking about what it is we want to release while we are doing the tapping over and over again, honoring and acknowledging all the feelings around it, not just going straight to the happy thoughts, but really staying in the hurt, feeling the sadness, feeling betrayal, feeling anger, whatever it is. We are allowing those uncomfortable emotions. And the third part of it is that it is a somatic therapy, because you can't help but when you're tapping on your body, physically tapping on your body, you are gathering your energy back from worrying about the past or worrying about the future, catastrophizing about the future, and you are bringing it down and back into your body and back into this present moment. So what's happening on a scientific level while all of that is taking place is, I don't know if you've explained this to your listeners, but when we are in a state of stress and a state of overwhelm, what has happened is that we have been triggered by our environment, something that's happening in our environment somehow. 99% of the time, we have no clue what it is that has triggered us. We just know that we feel stressed and overwhelmed, which is like a lot of the moms out there. So what's happening is the stress center in our brain, the amygdala, has been triggered, and we are in fight or flight mode. We are either paralyzed or we are trying to compensate somehow, or, we're just stressed. And cortisol has rushed through our bodies, which is the stress hormone, and we can't seem to feel relaxed. Maybe you're having a racing heart, or you're shallow breathing, or even just like sweaty palms, and we don't know how to fix that feeling.
Yeah.
So what tapping is doing in that moment, it's telling our amygdala over and over again, de-escalate. De-escalate. It's okay to feel safe and calm in this moment. There is no threat in this moment. Everything is actually fine. And so it starts removing cortisol from our body 43% faster than if you had done nothing else.
Wow. That's shocking.
Right? It's lowering heart rate. It's lowering blood pressure. It is increasing our immune system response, and it is increasing happiness levels. So in a very short period of time, you have created a really safe space for yourself to process uncomfortable emotions, and then recognize that in this moment, I am safe and there's nothing actually to worry about anymore. So all of that is happening at the same time. And if you have an event that you had an intensity level of maybe a 10, you can get yourself down to a 0, feeling totally emotionally neutral about it within an hour or less. And the whole time you are reducing the stress hormone in your body, making you feel more grounded and more present, getting all of those spinning thoughts out and bringing your energy back down into your body.
It's incredible how effective it is, and even just having the research and the numbers around it. There's 2 thoughts coming to mind as you were sharing this, and one of them is how this tool is very empowering. In a situation where you feel so disempowered, and often whenever we feel overwhelmed and really stressed, we can feel very helpless, which I know for me, it can send me back to when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm there again.
Yes.
And so then we can have a tool and be like, okay, but I'm an adult. I have something to help calm myself down and to help bring my mind, my emotions down so I can be present. I can actively choose to pull that out now.
Yes.
And use it. And then the other thought I had with this is because, okay, I didn't understand, because this was part of trying to come back to my old ways of coping. Basically, I would be like, okay, let me use this tool and calm myself down because I'm feeling so fearful, right? That's my main emotion I feel is fear. So I'm like, okay, use this tool, calm myself down. And what I would do is then, again, try to just, as soon as I could calm down, jump over it, ignore it, not acknowledge it, not do that. And so it took a while to realize this tool is so helpful to be able to de-escalate, to be able to, like you said, get back into your body in a more calm state where your brain's not so flooded and fearful. And then it's after doing that where it's like, okay, then I can be more regulated. Once I'm more regulated, then I can get curious about this and I can ask why, what happened, or, instead of just being like, okay, glad that's over, gonna run to the next thing. You know what I mean? Because I just used it as a way of denying, and then it built and built and built. So it's like, no, this is so important to help us get present, learn that like there is something we can do in those moments. And then there's the second part of what we can do afterwards to work through our feelings.
I'm so glad you brought this up because tapping is great for both circumstances too. Okay. And I want to tell your listeners particularly about that because it is really, really wonderful in a moment as a Band-Aid over something that is gushing and you don't have time to deal with it. It's really helpful to get your cortisol levels to dissipate and you can access that part of your brain that makes logical sound decisions again. Yes. So it's really helpful in those moments. And it is also really helpful to use it to address the source of the problem. So when you have your moment of getting curious and you can say, so what is it that happened? What is it that triggered me so deeply? And for me, I'll tell you that when I had this moment of clarity, I started asking myself, okay, what's underneath my procrastination? Because I was only using tapping on my symptoms at first.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What is it about procrastination and why am I feeling so paralyzed about moving forward on something I say that I want? And then the idea came, well, I think I'm afraid of failure. And I'm like, okay, what would happen if I failed? Because I hear over and over again that people that are really successful failed many, many times. And every single time they learned something. So why am I so afraid of failure? And the answer came, well, that would really confirm my worst fears, that there is something wrong with me and that I am not worthy and deserving of having good things in my life. And then I asked myself, where did I get that? And I'm like, because my dad left when I was little. And those were the decisions that I made when I didn't have all the information, when I wasn't able to see all the different perspectives that played a part in that happening. And so I, as a little kid, made a decision that there was something wrong with me.
So subconsciously too.
Right. Yeah. I had no idea. But that decision followed me through every single aspect of my life. That was the lens that I looked through the world at when I was making a decision about what career I wanted to go into or what job I applied for or what person I wanted to date or who I wanted to be friends with. Every single decision I made was with that lens on until I went back and used tapping on that. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I could suddenly see that the sky was blue.
Wow. Yes. Because it's almost like you've been walking around with this haze and the gray sky and you're like, I need to figure out how to name this. What is it? And what you just described, it's like this trail. It's almost like following these crumbs back. Yes. And it was after being able to, from what I'm hearing and understanding, being able to ground yourself using tapping to then ask those questions and trace it back. And then this next part, I would love for you to expand on, because what you said, like naming that and the message, here's the belief, here's this message that came, and this is where it came in. Yeah. And then the shift from gray skies to blue skies. Yeah. Was that from then going back and saying, okay, now I'm going to use tapping with this new message? Is because I've done something like this. I'm curious if that's part of this. If you could expand on that a little bit, just because
Okay.
I know,
This is a really good point because when you're tapping on your own, you always want to honor and acknowledge over and over and over again the uncomfortable emotions, the fear, the hurt, the anger, all of the things enough so that you can get your intensity rating down to like a 3 or 4.
And it only comes by naming it and admitting it.
And admitting it and honoring it over and over. Like, of course I came up with that way of thinking. Of course I felt like there was something wrong with me. My dad left and nobody explained or nobody tried to. We just have to have compassion for that part of ourselves that feels those things. But then when we get that number down to a 3 or 4 on the intensity scale, then we can start to infuse new beliefs and new ideas about who we really are, and our body and our mind will believe it at that point. If we start putting those like happy, really positive thoughts on top of all of that, those crummy feelings, like there's just a part of you that doesn't believe it, and it will never feel true at the deepest level. And so we have to get ourselves through all of that stuff, let all those feelings have their day in court, and then our body can let them go.
Yes.
And we can start infusing more positive thoughts and feelings, and then our body can absorb that in a really real way.
Wow. It's like the picture I have with that, removing the rubble.
Yes.
So the rubble and the rocks, those are like the ugly feelings we tend to not want to admit or talk about or feel. So, but it's like, no, there's a ton of rubble here.
Yeah.
We can't remove it if we don't name what it is.
Yes.
If we don't acknowledge it, if we don't honor that and be like, and just like, I love what you said of having that self-compassion and just talking to yourself like, yeah, I feel this and I feel, or even if I feel shame because of this, but of course I would feel that way. And it's just that process is removing the rubble so that you can then start to fill this up with the positive and have it be actual long lasting and not just another band-aid of this false or toxic positivity.
Yes. It is long lasting, but I do want to say too that we also heal in layers. So this belief I had that something was wrong with me, I was able to release a lot of it, especially that first time. It was really intense and it was really transformational for me. And then because that created more space in my life, I was able to expand into that space and ask for more from life for myself. But then there came a point where I bumped up against my own ceiling again. And I needed to do more work in order to expand into that space and then expand into that space. So the work really is never done, but it continues to allow me to become more of who I really am, just layer by layer.
I love that. And it's encouraging too, because ultimately it's like flexing a muscle, right? So it's like this whole process of it's layered. And I think it's helpful to be realistic, because it's like, as long as we're here, as long as we're humans, and which is why this tool is so needed, it's completely unrealistic to say, I'll never be triggered again. I won't ever have these feelings again. I won't have these thoughts again, because that's part of being human. But that we have this tool and we get to practice it, and it strengthens that muscle to where as we get into the deeper layers, we're more comfortable with it. We're like, oh, okay, I know what to do. This is still hard. It's next level hard.
Yes.
But I've done this before. And I know the process for the most part. I don't know what it will look like, but I know what I can do to start it again.
Yes. And once you've gone through kind of that initial healing and you've made it to the other side where there is so much space and so much relief, it's like wanting to do another race, wanting to train and do another race, because every time you do it, you strengthen that emotional muscle. And every time you do it, you know that there is such a great reward on the other side. And I've said this before too. I love finding a new shadow that I have to work through, because when I discover one of those, I'm like, yes, I've got another thing that I can kind of move out of the way so that I can move forward without having a bunch of obstacles in front of me. Right?
That is the best and so encouraging to hear, because it's so true. I love what you just said, moving obstacles out of the way, because that is very much what I've noticed over the past several years. As like prior to starting and facing and dealing with so much unresolved trauma, I would try to pursue certain endeavors and kept coming to a halt. I couldn't move past. And it's been doing this hard work, pursuing healing in so many other areas where those roadblocks have been removed. And just to encourage people with like what you said, when you get a taste of being on the other side of doing that initial hard work, you're like, this was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it is the most worthwhile thing I have done. And I'm not going to stop because I've had a taste and I know I can experience more.
Yeah.
So it's almost the best way, kind of addicting. You know, you're like, okay, in a way, but then you're also like, oh my gosh, it's hard, but so good.
But I also think it's hard because what we talked about in the beginning, and that we've never been encouraged to do this. So it makes us feel really vulnerable, even allowing ourselves to have these emotions. It makes us feel really vulnerable to voice them because we usually just keep it bottled inside.
Yes.
So, but it's not always that way. I'm not afraid of hard emotions anymore. I'm not afraid to lean into hurt or anger or any of those things. It doesn't feel like it did in the beginning. It's only because we have never been taught how to do it that it feels so hard.
Yes.
And against our, intuitively, we want to move away from things that don't feel good. But when we move towards them, it makes so much more sense. And you only really have to feel an emotion for like 90 seconds before it starts to go away. So we know at the end of this, it's going to feel 10 times better. Then it doesn't always feel so hard to lean into it.
I love that. And I'm just so glad that you're speaking to this. I'm wondering, as you've been doing more of this, I mean, okay, it's not as hard, it's not as scary. Have you been able to find other friends and other people in your community who are now also comfortable doing this, where you can share with them? Because I have found that can be a very difficult part because of our culture being so terrified of emotions and not knowing what to do. So when I was first venturing into this, and then I would try to share it, or like I know in churches a lot of times there's the spiritual bypassing that happens. Oh, I'm really uncomfortable with all of these big emotions. You're feeling sad or angry about something. So I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I'm going to throw a scripture, a Bible verse to slap it on as another Band-Aid. Because I don't really want to talk about it. But it's like, well, unless I actually talk about it, I'm not going to heal from this. So it can be hard, especially early on, finding other people you can be honest with outside of a therapist, like some friends. So have you found community or other people in your life that you can practice this with regularly?
I do have quite a few people now. It's been a process of really working on my ability to trust them with the information for myself, being able to trust that I can reach out to people and they will more often than not say, oh my God, I totally understand what you're feeling and saying. So it's been me taking down my armor. And I could only do that once I started working through the trauma on my own with a coach. Yeah. I wasn't ready to make myself vulnerable in that way, but I have been able to do that more and more because I'm not so afraid of those feelings or those parts of myself anymore.
That's so good. Yeah, that would make sense too, because we need a safe space to really start practicing this first. Yeah. Because I know when I haven't had that, I've tried with unsafe people out of pure desperation. And I was just like, I am so desperate. I'm in such a bad place. Anybody who could hear me, I'm going to share it, which was not wise. But that was the best I could do in that moment. And so I could see how like finding someone who is a safe place to land and start practicing is like, okay, then there could be other people. It's kind of like getting your toes wet and just trying to venture out to other friends, but I have found, like, as I've been more intentional of trying to find those, handful of people that I can really share honestly with, man, this makes all the difference because there's reciprocity. They're not pretending.
Yeah.
They have it all together. They're not pretending like, I don't know what you're talking about, or I'm sorry, or like treating me as a project. When I've found people who can reciprocate that, oh my gosh, the growth both of us get to have is tremendous. It's been so helpful.
And this is going to sound strange, but I have created that relationship with some of my clients too, because I think it helps for them to hear that I have these human emotions and times also. I can talk about my relationship with them. I can talk about how I felt as a kid, or how insecure I was, as a young adult, sort of thing, and relate what they're going through back to that. And then we move forward, both doing work.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah.
Together. Yeah. Really powerful thing. I'm all of my clients I consider really close friends because we're so honest and open with each other.
That is really neat. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the clients that you work with, I'm curious if you have seen someone, you have seen people heal from anxiety, trauma, and physical conditions through tapping. Yeah. Could you share one of the most powerful transformations that you have witnessed?
I'm going to share two different ones. They're two totally different things. One of which is a woman that came to me who had a severe phobia of flying. And of course, it prevented her ability to enjoy herself on vacations and family events and stuff like that. So, when you don't have a trauma associated with a phobia, she didn't experience an extreme situation on an airplane ever. It was really easy to dislodge this feeling with tapping. And within 90 minutes, she was really excited about an upcoming trip that she had coming. And I even talked to her, I think 2 or 3 years later, and she said, still doing great with flying. I'm not having any problems. And literally it felt like a 1-minute wonder to me. She was able to remove this massive fear from her life. So that was great. On the other side of the spectrum, I have a client who her mother was murdered. Her dad was an alcoholic. Her sister tried to get emancipated from her at some point. I mean, she's just had major, major abandonment issues in her life. And she had kind of an episode, a psychotic episode.
Oh, wow.
And so she came to me just in a really, really vulnerable place, barely able to function in her life. And within a year of tapping, she was in a really functioning relationship. She was doing great in her career and I wouldn't say totally healed, but she was showing up for her life again when she was not able to do that before. So we were able to heal all of that stuff within a year. And
that's amazing.
Now in her life, she is married and she has 2 young kids, and she is again bumping up against that layer in her life, and she's come back to see me and we're doing more work. But she is a highly functioning person in the world again when she wasn't at the time. So I consider that a really miraculous healing with tapping.
That is incredible.
1 year.
Considering all of those dynamics of trauma that she has been through, and the feeling of barely able to function, just barely, if at all, and then being able to live your life again and be like, and having kids and being able to show up for them and your spouse, that is remarkable. That is incredible. Well, I'm wondering, what are some small doable ways that moms can use tapping to release daily stress or overwhelm? Like even if they're in car line or at home in the middle of their kids taking a nap, or their, kids in having a meltdown, what's something that's simple and practical they could do in those moments?
Just go to my website, soarwithtapping.com, and there are videos to help you get started. It'll show you the tapping points that I use. Other practitioners might use other points. None of it is wrong. And you're not going to hurt yourself in any way by doing this. Okay. So no matter where you are, if you are feeling that stressed, overwhelmed feeling, just start tapping through the points. And you don't even have to say anything profound. You can just say, I feel so stressed right now, and I don't even know why. It's for whatever reason or for a million reasons. And I just want to honor it at the deepest level, how hard it is right now just to get myself out the door. Just you start honoring and acknowledging over and over again, tapping through the points, and you will get yourself to a place of feeling less stressed. And that is the most important thing.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. And it can take a few minutes. It doesn't have to take very long at all.
It doesn't have to take very long at all. No matter how much time you have to devote to it, it will help.
Yes.
So just know that it will help. And just saying those things out loud is so cathartic for most people. Instead of just keeping it in the swirling head thoughts, getting them outside of you is super helpful. So just do it. I know it looks silly. It feels silly. You know, when you're in the car line at school, dropping your kid off and to be doing this, but I know how well it works. And so I don't give a crap what other people think.
Yes.
And I often feel like when I am inspired to do it, I have been inspired by my higher power, and I'm just going to go for it because I feel like I'm being led to do it, either for myself or other people. And so just go for it. Not going to do any harm. You're only going to help.
That's so good. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see like the cart line of moms just tapping it out and then standing in Target, like, okay, at the checkout. It's amazing. Whatever. We're going to normalize this.
Supplies, you're like, oh my God.
I know.
How do I get through
with the demands? Exactly. All the requests when you're in the checkout line. Oh, that'd be so good.
Yes.
As we're coming to a close, I would love for you to share a little bit more about the app. So the Soar with Tapping app, you just mentioned it on your website, but I believe there's an app that we could use as well. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yes. I created the app. It was launched 2 years ago, and I really did it because I didn't see a tapping resource out there that really addressed the underlying issues that are on top of the symptoms, and it didn't address it in a deep enough way. So there's enough tapping scripts on the app to put a Band-Aid over what you're feeling in a moment, whether it's you're struggling with cravings or procrastination or anything along those lines. There are plenty of tapping scripts to deal with that and help guide you through the emotions when maybe you don't have a ton of self-awareness about what you're feeling or not enough practice verbalizing it that you know what to say. It's just going to guide you through those things. But it also will address the root causes that we talked about. So if you have more time to devote to it, it will help you start to neutralize anxiety at the source so you don't have these anxious episodes or overwhelming episodes. It will start to neutralize depression at the source. And there are a lot of videos that will tell you where to go in the app, how to use it, and what order you should go in moving forward in order to heal those things at a really meaningful level.
Wow, that's so neat because of getting to address something immediately. That can help you, like we talked about, in minutes, but then also going deeper, just like you shared earlier, to be able to identify what some of those messages or beliefs are that have really continued to contribute to reacting in these ways and getting triggered in these ways. That is so neat. I'm so glad that you created the app.
Me too.
Well, yeah, I would love if you could just share where people could connect with you and find you if they would like any more help on this or coaching or anything like that.
They can always email me, amy@soarwithtapping.com. If they want to download the app, they just search for Soar with Tapping or go to the website. There are many ways through all those different avenues to get in touch with me. And I'm on all of the social medias. I do like a little daily tapping thing just to kind of give people a little gift to start off their day.
I love that.
And hopefully get them in a good place.
Oh, that's so neat. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for sharing your story and your expertise with us. And I love that this is a tool that is so necessary. It's practical and can really, really help so many people who just try it and use it. So thank you so much
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, for anyone listening, if this conversation has resonated with you, I just ask that you would please share it with a friend who needs to hear it and be as a reminder that she's not alone. Well, thanks so much for listening, friend. I cannot wait to talk with you next time. Thanks for listening to Let's Get Real. If you've been feeling stretched thin, stuck in survival mode, or like you've lost yourself in motherhood, I made something just for you. It's called the Overwhelm Mom's Guide, and it's totally free. Inside, I walk you through simple steps to help you reconnect with who you are, find a bit more breathing room in your day, and start to feel like you again. You can grab it now. Just click the link in the show notes. You don't have to keep doing this alone. Let's take the next step together.